Well, I looked at it and I just knew I was looking into the face of another intelligence.
I don't feel safe trying to get...
Since time began, man has been obsessed with the oceans of the world, and that sense has proven to be totally justified as the peculiar creatures that have surfaced from those depths have truly terrified us. If you don't have a fear of the ocean, you just might after this. Here are 20 biggest sea monsters ever caught in history. Number 20. Biggest shark caught by rod and reel. This one is mired in controversy and is disputed as a genuine record in some circles on account of technicalities and general rules about fair play. So, for many out there, it is the 1959 record that still holds the crown, and this one falls wide of the mark. Let's find out what happened. This particular salty old sea dog went by the name of Captain Frank Mundus, and he's apparently the man who inspired Captain Quint from the movie Jaws. But that sort of accolade is often just the tiniest bit debatable. Anyway, as the story goes, it was 1986 when Mundus and a guy named Donnie Braddock used a 150-pound test line to reel in a 3,427-pound great white shark. This would smash all the other records clear out of the water, so the facts needed to be correct, and procedures needed to be followed perfectly. But they were not. The shark itself had been feeding on a dead whale at the time of the apparent encounter, and Braddock actually used a hook to get a hold of the shark in the first instance. Both of these things would technically void any kind of record attempt, as they were against the International Game Fish Association's record rule. So, it turns out the guys were not playing fair. As it goes, there were some out there who were happy to accept that this catch was, in fact, the biggest rod and reel catch ever, but that pesky thing with the hook and the dead whale and all kind of spoils it a bit now, doesn't it? But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 19. Maine's biggest lobster. And in the red corner, weighing in at 27 pounds of pure punching power, a lobster used to a much more miniature catch. Maine fisherman Robert Malone was in for quite a big shock when he hauled in a colossal crustacean in his net. Not unfamiliar with the odd lobster, of course, he was taken aback by the sheer scale of this massive beast. He found it notable enough to deliver the creature to the Maine State Aquarium for further scientific investigation. Was this a new monster species or a Jurassic Park escapee? Turns out, no, it was just a regular old lobster. But this one, however, did capture the imagination of all those who encountered it, being the biggest example that many had ever seen. Different claws are definitely unusual and something I have never seen before. Nicknamed Rocky on account of the crustacean's enormous boxing glove-like claws, this lucky lobster was returned to the ocean after the aquarium had taken down its vital statistics. I just wonder if Rocky's still out there running up flights of stairs and bulking up in training to knock out the next unsuspecting fisherman to catch him in his net. Number 18. 757-pound swordfish. Captain Nick of Islamorada is a seasoned fisherman who takes excitable groups out on very successful fishing trips for swordfish. He is the best there is in the challenge, having caught and released more swordfish than anyone else on the planet, so he kind of knows how to catch the big stuff. But this particular swordfish must have been a surprise even to this salty old sea dog when, back in March of 2019, Nick took out a boatload of clients on the water in his charter vessel off the waters of Islamorada in the Florida Keys. He then set bait in a spot where he had luck with swordfish before, and that's when they waited. But they didn't have to wait very long because, in just 10 short minutes, he noticed that they had a bite. It wasn't obvious just how big the fish might have been. There was no bending of the rod, and the bait just seemed to be disturbed. So, what happened next became rather surprising to everyone on board. It took over 40 minutes of wrangling to reel in the monster-sized swordfish so that they could see what they had on the line. It looked like a pretty big electric blue one, and they guessed that it was around 400 pounds. But over the next few hours, it deep-dived and then returned to the surface multiple times and never broke free from the line. It would take 5 more hours for the entire crew to eventually reel the fish to get a proper view of it, and that's when they realized that it probably weighed over 600 pounds. The swordfish was now getting pretty stressed out and seemed as though it was charging the boat to try and get away. The fishermen kept on reeling it in and eventually got the colossal fish onto the boat. They then took it back to dry land and weighed it, and it was about 757 pounds. Not only was it a record for Nick, but also a brand new record within the state of Florida as well. Number 17. 445-pound yellowfin tuna. This next story is about a guy who caught a really big yellowfin tuna while fishing near Hurricane Bank off the coast of Baja. This tuna weighed 445 pounds and was caught using a rod and reel. As he fought to reel in the beast, it took all of his strength and stamina to keep his grip, with the powerful fish pulling and thrashing for nearly an hour. It is the biggest yellowfin tuna to ever be caught in such a way. The man caught the huge tuna while on a fishing boat called the XL Sport Fishing. His fellow anglers on the boat cheered him on, shouting words of encouragement as he battled the massive fish in the open waters. However, Because the captain of the boat had helped him, the catch will not officially count as a record, according to the International Game Fish Association. The current record for the biggest yellowfin caught with rod and reel is 405 pounds. Well, it sucks to be this guy then. Number 16. Fisherman reels in living dinosaur. Here we have a fisherman who caught a huge 11-foot fish that weighed a substantial 588 pounds while fishing in the Fraser River in Canada. He thought the fish might be around 100 years old. He's a fishing guide who has shared a video on TikTok showing off his extra big catch. As they struggled to pull the massive creature closer to the boat, they marveled at its sheer strength and resilience, a true testament to its age and survival instincts. He reckoned that it weighed somewhere between 500 to 600 pounds. He believes that the fish was a sturgeon, a type of fish that's often called a living dinosaur because they've been around since the Jurassic era. The fish's rough, prehistoric-looking scales were a sight to behold, glistening in the sunlight as it wriggled and fought against the line. After catching the fish, they then tagged it and released it back into the river. Now, we're going to release it back into the river, and he believes the fish that they caught will live for another 100 years at least. Now it's time for today's topic. A photo that recently went viral on Japanese social media shows a fisherman holding a creature that has left everyone stunned. The fisherman, known for his routine trips to catch regular marine life, ventured into the waters off the coast of Hokkaido, Japan. He was expecting a typical catch, perhaps some tuna or squid, but what he pulled up was nothing short of extraordinary, a sea creature that defies description. This beast looked like a hybrid between a prehistoric reptile and a deep-sea predator, with rows of razor-sharp teeth and scales that shimmered in an eerie, otherworldly way. It had eyes that seemed almost too intelligent, tracking every movement around it. The creature's length stretched well over 6 feet, with a muscular body that resembled something out of a forgotten legend. What shocked the fisherman even more was that the creature seemed to growl as he tried to hold it still for a photograph. After snapping a quick picture, the creature thrashed violently, slipping out of his grasp and diving back into the ocean. Locals and marine biologists are now speculating about what this creature could be: an unknown species, a genetic mutation, or perhaps a survivor from the age of dinosaurs. Whatever it was, this catch has everyone talking, and experts are scrambling for answers. Number 15. 1,000-pound bull shark. In 2012, a scientist by the name of Neil Hammerhead spent his Sundays studying sharks near the Florida Keys. He really knew how to live. He was not hunting them for trophies, however. He was actually there to study them for research in order to protect them. Give me space, guys. Neil had worked at the University of Miami, spending weekends in southern Florida studying the sharks. He and his team would put baited lines in the water behind their boat, hoping that a shark would take a bite. Whenever they caught one, they then tagged it, took a small sample, and let it go. The entire process would take about 5 minutes. On May 27, 2012, however, they caught something big on their line and began pulling it in. They pulled in a massive bull shark, which is the top predator of the area. The shark was around 10 feet long and weighed about 1,000 pounds, and it was one of the biggest bull sharks that Neil had ever seen, and he had tagged over 1,000 of them before. Bull sharks are known for their aggression and ability to live in shallow waters. However, they don't specifically target humans, but if a person happens to be in the water, well, they are still super aggressive, so you know what that means. Number 14. Giant whiptail stingray. Is this the largest freshwater fish in the world? I know you can't believe any old big fish story you hear, but hang on a moment, this one is a big one. It's also known as the whiptail ray. The giant stingray is the stuff of legends, rarely seen but with local tales telling of gigantic 1,000-pound fish. This species is the prize for anglers who are looking for something epic. In 2009, it would be announced that the largest catch of this incredible creature had been documented on an expedition by National Geographic in the waters off of Thailand. The colossal catch measured 2 meters wide and a mighty 6.9 feet or 2.1 meters long. It was 8 feet wide, and it weighed probably 800 pounds. The poor creature, though, had lost its tail. I wonder if they named it Eeyore. If it had still been attached, it's likely that this ray would have measured up to 5 meters long. Unfortunately, it seems that although they did get the giant stingray's measurements, they didn't weigh it, so we can only have a guess at what it likely weighed. People think that it was at least 450 kilograms, being the heaviest of its species previously known to humankind. While scientists are still searching and discovering more about this huge fish, we can only imagine just how many giant stingrays actually exist, and perhaps even bigger versions are yet to be found. Maybe these are just the babies. Number 13. New world record pike. This guy caught a big pike back in Bulgaria in 2019, and it was no doubt an extremely thrilling experience. It turns out that this fish was possibly a world record, although only briefly, apparently because it was shortly thereafter beaten. This is the thing that keeps on driving fishermen to continue pursuing bigger and bigger fish. This one measured 140 centimeters long, weighing 23.5 kilograms. Pikefish are freshwater fish known for their long and slender bodies and sharp teeth. They have a distinctive appearance with greenish bodies and spots along their sides. They can grow to be quite large, with some of them reaching lengths of over a meter, like this one, and weighing over 23 kilograms, also like this one. These fish are found in lakes, rivers, and streams all across North America, Europe, and parts of Asia. They like to hide amongst plants and ambush their prey by quickly lunging forward to catch them with their sharp teeth. Pike fishing is a popular activity for anglers, as they put up a good fight when caught, and the bigger they are, the more fight they can give. Number 12. Giant king salmon. Next up, we have a story from all the way back in 1985. Les Anderson, who was a car dealer from Alaska, caught an absolutely huge king salmon while fishing with his friend Bud in the Kenai River. They were using something really 80s sounding called a spin and glow and salmon eggs as bait. The fish was so strong that it actually pulled Les around his boat. The big fish story goes that Les had tried 3 times to pull the fish into the boat, but it was just too big. Finally, when he managed to bring it close to the shore, he and Bud realized they needed to weigh the fish quickly before it lost weight from drying out. A mad but probably realistic thought. So, they rushed to a nearby scale where people had gathered to see the giant fish because there's not really that much else to do in Alaska, I guess. The salmon weighed 97 pounds and 4 ounces, and it broke the world record for the largest king salmon that was caught with a rod and reel. Les was known as the man who caught the world record salmon. Finally, we caught up with him, we got to our line back, and then we knew we were safe until he passed away in 2003. Today, you can still see the thrilling sight of the mounted fish on display at the Soldotna Visitors Association building. What a fun one. Number 11. 13-foot hammerhead shark. Florida fishermen made the evening news with their catch of the day a few years back. The lucky guys had an encounter with an extraordinary 13-foot-long hammerhead shark in the waters off Hannibal Island in Florida. The 3 guys had filmed their amazing catch as they managed to bring the shark into more shallow water to get a look at the fruits of their labor. The fishermen had been out in the Gulf of Mexico using the hammerhead's favorite bait, the stingray, with the hopes of catching a big one. But when they realized that they had snagged a gigantic shark, they could not believe their good fortune. The hammerhead caught on the line was about 200 yards out to sea, so the men wrestled the magnificent animal for more than half an hour to get it towards the beach. They got their epic photos and then released the shark back into the sea. They were overwhelmed with the sheer strength of the massive shark and thoroughly enjoyed their unique close-up experience with this beautiful beast. That shark doesn't look quite so thrilled with the unexpected trip to the beach, though now does it. Number 10. Arapaima gigas. Placed firmly among the largest of freshwater fish in the world, the arapaima is native to the Amazon and other basins in South America. These gigantic fishes will frequently grow to about 9 feet in length and can get even bigger than that. Their numbers have declined in recent decades as a result of overfishing and the modern problem of habitat loss. Whether this catch was the absolute official biggest that there's ever been, well, that's kind of debatable, but it was certainly impressive and was done on television as well, so that makes it even more of an excitement, I'm sure. The TV show River Monsters is a British and American fishing program that endeavors to seek out the most exciting and generally gigantic freshwater fish on the planet. It's hosted by a guy by the name of Jeremy Wade, who is apparently an extreme angler and biologist to boot. He pulls this colossal creature from the water in this clip to show, and boy, is it a big one. After a whole lot of close-up shots of Jeremy's gnarled and weather-beaten face, there's a bit more fishing action as he wrangles the rod and reel in an attempt to bring in the 150-pound female arapaima, before finally leaping into the water and literally wrestling the fish into submission with a series of bear hugs. It becomes quite the dramatic hands-on fishing experience and perhaps not the best technique to try if you are a beginner at the thing. Number 9. Large 280-pound catfish. Back in 2015, a fisherman who goes by the name of Dino Ferrari apparently managed to catch an astonishingly large catfish in the Po River in Italy. Well, good for him. The fish was flipping enormous, and it seemed that it measured a ludicrous 8 feet and 9 inches in length and weighed 280 pounds. That is massive, and it took a full 40 minutes to reel the whopper in. I mean, that's hardly surprising. The thing's basically a whale at that point. Dino and his brother snapped a whole lot of pictures with the fish while it slowly started to suffocate, and then they returned it to the river. People who first saw the picture couldn't actually believe that it was real, so Dino released a video in which he demonstrated the authenticity of the fish and its seemingly impossible size. The thing is, though, is this the only one that has grown to this size, or could there actually be others? A terrifying thought, and frankly, the idea that this is what fish are like now is going to be haunting my nightmares. But what do you think? Could this be the evolution of catfish? Are these insanely big fish going to take over the world and eat everything in their path? Go on and give me all your fabulous opinions in the comments section down below. I know you want to. Number 8. Massive tiger shark. Tiger sharks are common enough in the waters around Australia that fishermen are actually allowed to keep a tiger shark in their daily catch. That fact didn't stop people from expressing concern and even outrage when images emerged of this massive tiger shark squeezed onto a teeny-weeny little fishing boat. Tiger sharks are now considered nearly endangered and on the IUCN's red list, but despite a decrease in their numbers that's estimated to be 74% lower than 50 years ago, they are not at risk enough to warrant the protection of Australian law. Apparently, this 870-pound catch of the day looked like a sorry sight as the fishermen steered their boat back to harbor in Sydney. It caused quite the hubbub when people took umbrage with the men's apparent carelessness over their catch. This debate raged on with all kinds of discussions about the fate of the tiger shark. The New South Wales Game Fishing Association poked in there or as well, saying that they are not out there just to murder everything that's in the water. Those guys have only taken one fish, and while that may be true, it still sucks to be that one fish. Number 7. Bluefin Tuna. Another day, another massive fish. The second most expensive fish ever sold was a bluefin tuna. It weighed in at just 4 pounds less than the record breaker, and this 68-pound fish was sold to the same company at the very same auction 1 year later. The colossal tuna was sold to none other than Kiyoshi Kimura, the self-proclaimed tuna king, not because he has fins and scales, but because he claims to be the master of all things tuna. Oh, and he also has the credentials. He had purchased and prepared one just like it last year as well. This time, the Tuna King forked out a whopping $1.8 million for the auction star's lot. When he was asked why he was prepared to spend so much money for one little fish, he said, "It is expensive, isn't it?" He wanted his customers to have very tasty ones that year. The giant fish was estimated to be able to make 10,000 pieces of sushi, so that should fill somebody up, I guess. Number 6. 2,000-pound great white shark. Back in 2020, a 2,000-pound great white shark made a stop near Miami during its long journey. The shark had been swimming for 103 days and had covered a distance of over 13,000 miles all the way from the coast of Canada. OCARCH, a non-profit organization, had been tracking the shark's movements since it was first discovered in September of 2019. Researchers were hopeful that studying the shark's travels would lead to more discoveries about great white sharks. These sharks are classified as vulnerable populations by the World Wildlife Fund, which means that they are at risk of becoming endangered, even if their existence means that swimmers in their vicinity might be an endangered species themselves. This particular shark has been named something that I can't pronounce, and it weighed over 2,000 pounds and was first found near an island. The name of this great massive fish means land of the fog, in the language of the indigenous people of Nova Scotia. She measured 15 feet 5 inches long, which makes her the second largest great white to be ever tagged by OCRCH in the Northwest Atlantic. Although she was large, she was not the biggest one found. Another massive adult female white shark weighed 3,541 pounds and was discovered off of Nova Scotia the previous month. This one had been traveling down to the east coast from Nova Scotia, where she was spotted near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in October of 2019, and then off the coast of North Carolina, Virginia Beach, Atlantic City, New Jersey, and more. And everyone at the beach was no doubt thrilled by that, I'm sure. Number 5. Giant Humboldt squid. Also known as the jumbo squid, these large cephalopods are native to the warmer waters of the eastern Pacific, but they've been making their way to different regions and can be found as far as northern Alaska. Say sushi, sushi, baby. The trouble with this relentless expansion of their habitat is that these things tend to eat a whole lot. They aren't that fussy either. No, this squid will happily hoover up all kinds of seafood. Their carnivorous diet includes smaller fish, crustaceans, plankton, other cephalopods, and yes, even sharks. These ravenous creatures will chomp their way through the entire ecosystem of their territory while barely pausing to chew. And you should see the thing hunt. The jumbo squid feeds at the surface of the water, but they hunt beneath as ambush predators. The squid use their super strong tentacles to strike their prey, and the barbed suckers make quick work of the attack. They can reach out and snare the unwitting mark in the blink of an eye, then those suckers go to work, each containing horrifying sets of tiny razor-like teeth that the squid uses to slash at and tear into the flesh of its victim. When you add to this deadly efficient hunting technique the fact that these animals can hunt either on their own or in groups of thousands, they get that little bit more terrifying. That's when the shark really needs to steer well clear of these animals. A group of jumbo squid can work together as a team to hunt a much larger creature and tear it to shreds in no time flat. Their favorite murder move is to grab a hold of their prey and pull it deep down into the ocean until the unfortunate creature simply stops fighting because they slip into unconsciousness. No squidding. These creatures are terrifying. Number 4. 300-pound alligator gar. An alligator gar is a kind of freshwater fish that's native to North America. They have a long and narrow torpedo of a body with a short, wide snout and rows of nasty and vicious teeth. These fish are fearsome ambush predators that stalk the waters of lakes in hunt of fish, waterfowl, and other small mammals. They usually measure around 5 or 6 feet long, so they're kind of large but generally nothing to write home about, or that's what people think most of the time anyway, because these things can actually get pretty huge. Back in 1951, a really massive alligator gar was caught in Texas. That specimen weighed a mighty 279 pounds and set all kinds of records. But this record was completely blown out of the water by a catch in 2019 in Mississippi. This one measured an incredible 8 feet long, weighing in at a record-crushing 327 pounds. It's believed that this old lady of the lake was probably between 50 and 70 years old when she was caught. Usually, these kinds of fish would be subject to a catch-and-return system, but the fisherman responsible said this big fish was caught in the net and didn't survive the encounter. Seems like more than a pity that this elderly creature was plucked in such an untimely and thoughtless way from the water, and it begs the question, how many more years may she have lived had she been left well alone? Number 3. Goliath tigerfish. In 2010, British angler Jeremy Wade found himself grappling with a rather ferocious-looking kind of giant piranha while fishing on the Congo River in Africa. He had caught the aptly named Goliath tigerfish during his expedition. Jeremy had to be careful while holding the fish because of its razor-sharp teeth. The Goliath is known as one of the most fearsome freshwater fish in the world, often described as a bigger and more deadly version of the piranha. It features 32 teeth, all similar in size to those of the great white shark, and has been known to attack humans and even crocodiles. It's not a friendly sort of fish, to say the least. This giant fish is rarely caught by fishermen due to the danger that it poses and the difficulty of reaching its habitat. Jeremy, who hosted the show River Monsters on ITV in the UK, took extra care when reeling it in. It weighed more than 100 pounds and was 5 feet long. Those teeth, just like a piranha's, are triangular, which made for some good television, and they definitely added plenty of scary-sounding music to the footage to make it even more exciting. Number 2. Alfred Glassel World Record Marlin. Found in the tropical and temperate waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, black marlin are prized by game fishing enthusiasts. The females are the larger of the species and can exceed over 1,000 pounds, and when they're this heavy, they're called granders, so it's safe to assume that the biggest catch of its kind was a ladyfish. The International Game Fish Association has the world record for a black marlin as being held by a man named Alfred Glassel, who caught a whopping great big 1,560-pound black marlin all the way back in 1953. That record still apparently stands. But then again, catching one of these creatures is pretty difficult work. They're extremely agile and athletic and will put up quite the fight, battling against fishermen and tackle with all that they've got. So to catch one of these fish, let alone a massive record-breaking one, well, that is a rather special achievement indeed. Number 1. Largest striper ever. Back in 2012, a man named Captain Blaine Anderson landed the fish of a lifetime. It was a massive 57-inch striped bass estimated to weigh about 74 pounds. Blaine was already pretty familiar with catching all kinds of big fish and had been taking clients to fish for loads and loads of 40 and 50-pound bass in the waters of Long Island Sound around Niantic, Connecticut. But this particularly sizable catch happened during Blaine's first trip out under the ocean to do some research for an upcoming charter, so that was a fairly promising start to the season. Blaine caught the huge bass using a live scup as bait, a technique that he had previously shared on an episode of On the Water TV. The fish was hooked on the second drift of the day, and the last-minute fight was captured on video. It's believed to be the largest striper ever filmed. The Connecticut coastline is known for producing big bass, and with the current world record striped bass, an 81-pounder caught by Greg Meyerson, also coming from Connecticut waters, seeing big bass is quite common in this area. Well, that was quite the adventure on the high seas. Which one of these big old sea monsters did you enjoy the most? Have you ever caught a big fish yourself? Go ahead and let me know all about it in the comments down below. Be sure to check out the other cool things on the screen, and I'll see you next time.